Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, text 4. Yada hi indriyartheshu
Yada hi nindriyarthesu
na karma sa anujasate
na karmasya anusajjate
sarva sankalpa sannyasi
sarva sankalpa sannyasi
yoga ruddhastadochyate.
yoga ruddhastadochyate. Okay, I can read.
Please.
A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder.
So Krishna is saying, elevated in yoga, one is called a yogi. When he does not have material desires, when he's not acting for his self-enjoyment, for his sense enjoyment. So this is the pure devotee. Elevate. So Krishna is saying here, means the highest yogi. The highest yogi is the devotee. He is having no material desires. He has no desire for sense gratification. And he's not engaging to enjoy the fruits of his karma. You see, we in the conditioned stage, we are looking for enjoyment of our karma. I will act in a way so that I can enjoy. Act we must. We cannot say, okay, I'm not going to act. Or because I have this tendency to enjoy, so I will not act. We are going to act. Activities with the soul. But the pure devotee, he chooses to act for the pleasure of Krishna. Whereas we in the conditioned life, we choose to act for our own sense gratification. So how do we get from where we are to the position of Krishna consciousness? We hear and chant. Hearing and chanting, and then gradually the material desires can be cleaned out. The desire for sense gratification can be cleaned out. So Prabhupada is saying one may not have this realization, but must mechanically try to do it. So we may not be there as yet, but by controlling, by engaging in hearing and chanting, by associating with devotees, it will give us the strength to do such things. Udarit atmanatmanam
Udareta Atmana
natmanam avasadayet.
Natmanam avasadyate
Adai
Atmeva hi atmano bandhur.
atmave he atmano bandhu
Mana Bandhu
Atmeva ripur atmana.
atmaiva ripur atmana.
Atmana.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. The word Atma denotes body, mind, and soul. depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important. Since the mind is the central point of yoga practice, Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects. It is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire of nescience. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desired to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature. And in this way, the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing this point. That is, that one must do this. It is also said, Man eva manushyanam karanam bandha moksha bandhaya vishyasango muktai nirvishyam mana. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad 2. Therefore, the mind which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation.
So here Krishna is speaking about the mind. Mind, he's saying, can be our best friend and can be our enemy. So when we say Atma, different people may refer to different things. The self, one may think himself as the body, or the mind, or real self, the soul. We may have different definitions depending on the different circumstances. So what the yogis always do is they first control the mind and the senses. Controlling mind and senses to reach to the goal. So control of mind and senses is not bhakti, but it's the gateway. It's the gateway of bhakti. All yogas are trying to strive that. Even the Dhyan yogi, he's sitting in meditation, even the jnanis, and even the bhaktis. But what the bhakta is trying to do is he engages the mind and senses in the service of Krishna. And because he's engaging it in service of Krishna, then automatically the senses and mind get control. That's the way the devotee does it. Like Ambarish Maharaj, he first fixed his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord, and then he's using his hands and clean the temple, the legs to visit the temple. So like that. But then we may not be at this position. We may not be able to do such things. We may not know how to control the mind and senses. So what shall we do? We continue to hear from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chant the holy name. Because here one is saying that we should not degrade ourselves by the mind, because the mind is a tool. We can choose how to use a tool. Krishna is saying use it as your friend. The more we engage the mind in thinking of Krishna to that degree, then we are not thinking of sense objects. And they only do one thing we can think of one time. When we are thinking of Krishna, then automatically sense object is avoided. So Krishna consciousness. When we are just too much after sense objects, And the mind is also all the time thinking, I'm going to eat, I'm going to sleep. And so that is mind absorbed in sense objects. What we have to try to do is let the mind think of Krishna so that we can get liberated. And hearing and chanting is the easiest way that we can think of Krishna. And when one is Krishna conscious, then one can get liberated, get out of this material world of birth and death. Is that okay?
Yes.
Bandhur atmat manastasyam
Bandhur atmat manastasya
yenatmevatmana jitam
yenat mevat mamachita
anatmanastu shatrutve
anatmanastu shatrute
vartitatmeva shatruvat.
varte atmaiva shatruvat.
For him who has
For,
conquered the mind. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
yeah. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. The purpose of practicing Eightfold Yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically.
So then Krishna is saying what happens when we control the mind. That the mind can become our best friend. If best friend means what? That it is going to help us to get out of the material world. And greatest enemy means what? That is going to let us remain in this material world of birth and death. So the Ashtanga yoga is also there to control the mind. All the yoga, the yogis are first always trying to control the mind to do the practice of their particular process of yoga. And Prabhupada is saying that unless we control the mind, the practice of yoga is a waste of time. Because by yoga, we need to control the mind so that we can engage it to help us get out of here. Otherwise, the mind is keeping us here. It's like a projection. It gives us these pictures that, oh, this is going to happen. So stay on here. You're going to enjoy in this way. The circumstance will change and you will be happy in this way. So stay on, stay on. So then one may say, isn't it good to desire good things? Isn't it good to desire enjoyment? Of course, we are seeking enjoyment. We cannot live without enjoyment. That's the nature of the soul, Anandamaya Bhyasa. But the mind makes us think that there is enjoyment separate from Krishna. Whereas because we are parts and parcels of Krishna, our enjoyment is with Krishna. That's what it does. When it encourages us to not revive our relationship with Krishna, that's when it is the enemy. And when we can use it to help us to revive our relationship with Krishna, then it's our best friend. Jitatmana prashantasya
जितात्मना प्रसन्नस्य
Paramatma samahita
परमात्मा समाहिता
Shitoshna sukha dukkeshu
शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखेषु
Tatha mana pamanaya.
तथा मानापमानयो.
For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or Supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness. The devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practically samadhi or absorption in the Supreme.
So control of mind. And Krishna is saying from one who's controlled the mind, the super soul is reached. Can realize the Paramatma. So he's steady, the pure devotee. This is the symptoms of the pure devotee. The Paramatma, he's there in each and everyone's heart. It's not that he's there in the heart of some particular people or community or living entity. No, Paramatma is in the heart of every living entity. But we are unable to understand that he's in the heart because right now our mind is very attracted by the illusion that's going around us, by the Maya, by thinking I'm the body, by forgetting our relationship. But we need to use the intelligence to control the mind. Krishna says the intelligence is higher than the mind, and the soul is higher still. So extraneously, it is very difficult to control the mind, by some other methods, it gets very difficult. But if we engage the mind in thinking of Krishna, of course, there may be situations which are very, very, they disturb our mind so much. They disturb so much, then what shall we do? And then we are always encouraged to hear and chant more, hear more about Krishna, chant his holy name. Or someone may be a good Caitaniya. Maybe somebody may be good in singing, so they can sing Kirtan. Somebody may be good in painting. They can paint for Krishna. When the mind is disturbed, then there may be some particular activity we like to do. And then we can do that, connect that activity with Krishna. And then gradually, the mind will calm down in Krishna consciousness. Because when the mind is really agitated, we really don't want to do anything. But if we can understand, oh, this is I like to do. I like to do whatever it may be, or I like to read. Let me read Bhagavad Gita instead. So then our anxiety and our restlessness can calm down. And gradually, as one hears and chants more, then this is the state that the pure devotee, he's in samadhi. His consciousness is always how to please Krishna. That is his consciousness. So that's why it's called samadhi. So what is the end of the Ashtanga Yoga Samadhi? Devotees actually begin with this. And Krishna says, engage your mind and always thinking of me. Then what do? No, he says, worship me, offer obeisances to me. So we can see that where Ashtanga Yoga ends, in fact, there is so many activities there then on this level of samadhi which the devotees are doing. The pure devotee, all the activities they are doing in this state of samadhi, always thinking of Krishna. Okay. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma
Jnana Vijnana Tripatma
Kutasto Vichitendriya
Kutasto Vijendriya
Yukta Iti Uchyate Yogi
Yukta Ita Uchyate Yogi
Samaloshrashma Kanchana.
Shama Loshtrashma Kana Kanachana.
A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Book knowledge without realization of the supreme truth is useless. This is stated as follows: Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhaved Grahyam Indriya Sevan Mukhe Hi Jivadau Swayam Eva Spurati Ada. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his material, contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. This Bhagavad Gita is the science of Krishna consciousness. No one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions. But by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. It is the realized soul who is actually self-controlled because he surrendered to Krishna. He is transcendental because he has nothing to do with mundane scholarship. For him, mundane scholarship and mental speculation, which may be as good as gold to others, are of no greater value than pebbles or stones.
So Krishna is saying that, one may study the Vedas, scriptures, but then that may be just because one wants to be called a scholar. But if we are going to study the Vedas only for being called a scholar, then we are missing the point. We may think I'm a great scholar, I have so much knowledge, but then that's not what the purpose of reading the scriptures is for. All the scriptures is for us to come to understand Krishna, to revive our love and devotion to Krishna. This is what all the scriptures are for. So, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami says, how can we understand Krishna? We cannot understand Krishna by, right now our senses are contaminated. We are thinking we are the body. We are thinking the senses are mine. They are meant for this material enjoyment. But how can we be able to understand Krishna then? Only when we engage in devotional service, pure devotional service. And then the more one engages in devotional service, the senses become purified. becomes purified, and then one will be able to experience, one will be able to understand Krishna's name, form, quality, pastimes. Everything will be revealed to him. So it's the study of Bhagavad Gita is not that we just get a stamp. Oh, I studied Bhagavad Gita, but what is the purpose? To hear. Now, also Bhagavad Gita, we need to hear from the pure devotee. Like now we are hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is also coming in the parampara. So we are hearing from him. This is the way to read Bhagavad Gita, to hear Bhagavad Gita from someone who has realized the knowledge. But if we are going to just hear Bhagavad Gita who has scholarship only, no realization of the knowledge, then we will also just be called scholars, but we will miss the main essence of the Bhagavad Gita, where what is it? To become a devotee. Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakta. Become my devotee, engage your mind in thinking of me. That is the most confidential part of Bhagavad Gita. Not just simply getting a stamp that yes, I'm a great scholar. This is what Krishna is saying. That by study of this knowledge, revive the devotion, hear this knowledge from the pure devotee so that we can revive the knowledge. Like if we are gonna, for example, study some computer science, then we need to enroll ourselves in an institution which can teach us properly. Or say graphic designing. We need to enroll ourselves in this institution which teaches us graphic designing properly. We can understand the whole thing. Then we can become qualified ourselves to teach, and we will understand this whole science. But if we just pick it up from here and there, we may not be able to understand it very, efficiently enough so that we can actually teach and become masters of it. So Bhagavad Gita, we should hear from the devotees to get really the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Surin Mitrari Udasena
Shurna Mitrari Udashina
Sadhusha Apicha Papeshu Samabhudir Vishishyate.
Shama Buddhir Vishishyate.
A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral meditators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
So this is the pure devotee, because he's not seeing anyone on the bodily platform. He's understood everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. So he's not looking at different bodies, different designations. He's just seeing the soul and the super soul everywhere. That's why he can have this equal mind. He's completely understood. I'm part and parcel of Krishna, and everyone else is also part and parcel of Krishna. Yogi Yunjita Satatam.
Yogi Yunijita Satatam
Atmanam Rahasi Sthita.
Atmanam Rahasi Sthita
Ekaki Yata Chitatma.
Ekaki Yata Chitatma
Nirashir Aparigraha.
Nirashir Aparigraha.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Krishna is realized in different degrees as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna consciousness means, concisely, to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But those who are attached to the impersonal Brahman or the localized soul are also partially Krishna conscious. Because the impersonal Brahman is a spiritual ray of Krishna and the super soul is all pervading partial expansion of Krishna. Thus, the impersonalist and the meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. A directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Paramatma. His knowledge of the absolute truth is perfect, whereas the impersonalist and the meditative yogi are imperfectly Krishna conscious. Nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him even for a moment. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called samadhi or trance. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness, because direct Krishna conscious means self-abnegation, wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. Srila Rupa Goswami characterizes Krishna consciousness in this way. Anasaktasya visayan yatharam upayung jata. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. प्रापंचिकतया बुद्ध्या हरि संबंधी वस्तुना मुमुक्षु भी परित्यागो vairagyam falgu kathyate. When one is not situated to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated about possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He's always aloof from material things because he's always transcendental and he's always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi.
So here Krishna is saying, control of mind and senses, free from desires, free from material attachments, always engaging body, mind, and soul in the service of Krishna. So he's speaking of the pure devotee. Now Krishna is saying the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth is realized in 3 stages, 3 degrees, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. So as much as one has studied, the preliminary idea one may have of God is that God is Brahman. But when one studies the subject matter more, one comes to understand that he's also the Paramatma, the all-pervading super soul in every living entity, in every atom. And when one studies further, one realizes that the Supreme Lord is a person. He's the Supreme Person. And the Brahman is the effulgence which is coming from his body. And the Paramatma is a feature by which he has entered into every atom of the universe and into the heart of every living entity. That is a complete realization of the absolute truth. So Prabhupada is of course saying that some may be attached to the Brahman feature, some may be attached to the Paramatma feature. They are also partially Krishna conscious because after all, where is the Brahman coming from? Brahman is coming from Krishna. It's the effulgence of Krishna. So they are partially Krishna conscious. Now someone may be have Paramatma realization. They are also partially Krishna conscious. Why? Because who is the Paramatma? The Paramatma is a feature of Krishna by which he's pervading this entire material creation. So by one who is directly Krishna conscious, he understands, oh, Krishna is a person and Brahman is his effulgence and Paramatma is a feature by which he is pervading the entire world. So Krishna, what does the instruction Krishna gives in the 9th chapter? The most confidential knowledge. Manmana bhava madbhakto. Always engage your mind, thinking of me. Krishna is not saying think of something inside me, think of something beyond me, something which is above me or below me. No, he's saying think of me. So thinking of Krishna in his form. Krishna's form is transcendental. Two-armed form, two beautiful eyes, having the peacock feather on his head, holding the flute. Krishna is saying, think of me in this way. All the scriptures, all the rules and regulations are to support this. Always remember Krishna. Never forget Krishna. These are the foundation. This is the foundation principle. Always forget Krishna, never forget Krishna. All other rules and regulations are made to support this rule. So fixing mind on Krishna means one is in samadhi. So when one is said one is living alone, it doesn't mean that we really live alone, but in the association of devotees. Association of devotees. So here Rupa Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, he's written in his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which La Prabhupada translated as Nectar of Devotion, that what is renunciation? We may say, oh, I renounce the world, I renounce this, I renounce my house, I renounce my family. But that is not complete renunciation. Complete renunciation is when one understands that everything belongs to Krishna. So everything should be engaged in service for Krishna. Then one is called, rightfully called, renounced. Then one is rightfully called unattached. If one gives up things just prematurely, without understanding everything belongs to Krishna, then that renunciation is not complete. But understanding everything belongs to Krishna, everything, everyone has a relation with Krishna, then that is real renouncement. Getting attached to Krishna. The pure devotee, he understands that everything is belonging to Krishna. And so he understands that they don't belong to him. So he's not hankering for them. And he has that intelligence. Oh, I should do this. This is favorable for Krishna consciousness. I shouldn't do this. This is not favorable for Krishna consciousness. So that's how he's acting. He's acting that this will help me remember Krishna. So he's doing it more. Then he's saying this is going to make me forget Krishna. So he does not do that. And so the pure devotee is the perfect yogi. His mind and senses are completely controlled. This is the position of the pure devotee. Any questions or comments?
No.
No? So is it okay? We'll stop here for today. Stop
Yeah,
okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. La Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.